My name was Amina. I was a daughter of the faith, a shadow in a world where women like me were molded into silence. By the tender age of 13, I was shackled to a future I never chose, forced to obey the dictates of tradition in a village cloaked in darkness and fear. I wore my veil like a shroud, my heart heavy with a longing I didn't fully understand. And within that weight, I felt an emptiness, an echoing void that cried out for something I had yet to find. But then, something unimaginable happened. In the grip of a life-threatening accident, my soul left my body, and I found myself in a barren desert, surrounded by the profound stillness of eternity. It was there that I encountered him, Jesus, a figure radiant with love and power, calling me by name. He pierced through the darkness that enveloped me, unveiling a truth that shattered the chains binding my spirit. As he spoke, I saw the battle for my soul, a clash of light against the cold shadow of oppression that sought to claim me. Jesus revealed the lies woven into my identity, the system that had dictated my worth, my destiny. For the first time, I grasped the truth of freedom, resonating deeply within me. I was never meant to be confined, never meant to follow the narrow paths laid out by others. I was born for more. When I awoke, the struggles began anew. My family, my community, branded me a heretic. The fear of rejection loomed large, yet my newfound faith burned brighter than any threat they could wield. I was torn between two worlds, one that demanded my silence and another that whispered promises of liberation. In this darkness, I embarked on a secret quest for truth, delving into the very words that sparked my awakening and seeking out those who might understand. I found strength in a hidden community that nourished my spirit, igniting a fire within me to share my story. My heart pulsed with purpose, to warn others like me of the shackles of religious control, to illuminate the path to true freedom found only in Christ. Before we dive deeper into this journey of revelation, I invite you to share where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Your stories matter here. And if you love Jesus, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Join me as we explore the transformative power that awaits, because the truth I'm about to unfold can change everything. In the isolated village where I grew up in southeastern Turkey, life revolved around the rhythms of strict Islamic traditions. From a very young age, I was taught that submission was a virtue, especially for women like me. Our existence was often defined by the expectations of our families and the religious leaders in our community. As a girl, I felt the weight of those societal pressures heavily upon me. The fear of defying tradition loomed large, and I learned quickly that questioning our way of life could lead to severe repercussions. It was an existence filled with spiritual obedience. But beneath the surface, I felt a spark of rebellion flickering within me, longing for freedom that seemed out of reach. The pivotal moment in my life came unexpectedly, shattering the illusion of safety that had enveloped me. Forced into a marriage at just 13, I was stripped of my childhood, my voice, and the promise of my own future. It was a cruel reality that many girls faced in our village, yet the pain of such a sacrifice felt uniquely suffocating. My heart ached each day as I adjusted to a life filled with expectations that drained the very essence of who I was. The whispers around me reinforced my fear, a constant reminder of the consequences of going against the deeply ingrained traditions. Yet in those shadows of despair, I sensed a longing for something greater, something I couldn't yet define. Then came the night when everything changed. I found myself in a near-death experience, an event that thrust me into a profound encounter with Jesus. I was cast into darkness, but it was within that void that I finally met the light. In those moments, surrounded by an unexplainable radiance, Jesus stood before me. His gaze was filled with compassion, and as he extended his hand, I felt the surge of love and acceptance enveloping me. He began to reveal truths, showing me the manipulation behind the hidden agendas of the elite that ruled our lives. I saw the intricate web of deception that sought to keep us in fear and obedience. A vicious cycle that extended beyond our village and into the very fabric of society. With every revelation, the grip of my old life loosened. I witnessed the spiritual war unfolding around me, the wars not fought merely on battlefields, but within hearts and minds. I saw how the quiet voices of dissenters were silenced by fear, how love and compassion were twisted into tools of oppression. The truths that Jesus illuminated within me cut through the darkness, sparking an awakening that I had never anticipated. I realized that my suffering had not been in vain. It was a stepping stone toward a greater purpose. I understood that the choice to follow Jesus meant choosing love over fear, embracing truth over deception. As I returned to consciousness, the path ahead was daunting. I knew that my transformation would not only challenge my beliefs, but also put me at odds with everything I had grown up believing. The terror of backlash from my family and community gripped my heart, yet the light of revelation urged me to move forward. I felt compelled to share this awakening, to help others who were trapped in the same chains of tradition that had bound me for so long. The desire to evangelize, to expose the truths hidden under layers of deception, surged within me like an unstoppable force. I was ready to confront the spiritual war head-on, recognizing that my journey was just the beginning, a fight for not just my freedom, but the freedom of all who still sought the truth. At 13, I stood at the crossroads of expectation and desire, the daughter of a respected religious leader in our village. My delicate appearance masked an inner turmoil that simmered just beneath the surface. While everyone around me celebrated the customs and traditions that defined our lives, I felt a growing chasm within me. I dutifully adhered to the practices expected of a girl my age, yet the more I complied, the more pronounced the emptiness became. It was as if I was wearing a mask, painted with the colors of submission, while inside, I yearned for something more, something beyond the confines of my sheltered existence. My family regarded me as an example of devotion, but deep down, I questioned the very essence of the traditions I was bound to. I found myself grappling with the pressure of an unwanted arranged marriage that loomed over me like a dark shadow. No one seemed to hear the cries of my heart. Instead, they revered obedience, urging me to embrace my fate. The weight of expectation was crushing, and the thought of surrendering my future to someone I didn't love filled me with dread. Each time I glanced at my reflection, I could see the fear flickering in my eyes, hidden behind the facade of a dutiful daughter. One night, after a day filled with rehearsed smiles and hollow laughter, I lay in bed wrestling with my thoughts, unable to shake the unsettling feeling that there must be more to life than this. As I drifted off to sleep, my dreams took me to a vivid realm, where I found myself enveloped in radiant light. In that divine space, I encountered Jesus. It was a moment that shattered the darkness. His presence filled me with a warmth I had never experienced. He looked at me with such compassion, and in that glance I felt seen in a way that transcended all the roles I had been forced to play. In that encounter, Jesus revealed truths to me that had been kept hidden beneath layers of societal deception. I felt a surge of understanding wash over me as he spoke of the spiritual war raging not only within my heart, but throughout the world. He opened my eyes to the manipulation employed by those in power, the elite who thrived on controlling lives through fear and tradition. I began to see the systemic issues that perpetuated suffering and division around me. The revelation was both overwhelming and liberating. I understood that I was not alone in my struggles. Many others faced the same chains that bound me, and my heart ached with the urgency to awaken them to the truth. As the visions continued to unfold, I realized that the time for complacency had passed. The deception that had dictated our lives was being exposed, and I felt compelled to act. I knew I could no longer abide by the traditions that suffocated my spirit. This awakening meant embracing not only my freedom, but also the responsibility to stand against the injustices that persisted in the name of faith. I was filled with a fierce determination to reach others and share the love and light I had found through Jesus. When I awoke from that transformative experience, I knew I had been given a choice to reject the path laid before me, or to forge a new one grounded in truth and purpose. However, the road ahead was fraught with challenges. I contemplated the risk of speaking out against the very traditions that had shaped my identity. Would my family understand? Would my community turn against me? The stakes were high, but I felt an urgent call to embrace this awakening, to seek out others trapped in the darkness and help guide them toward the light of truth. The spiritual war was just beginning, and I was resolved to join the fight for liberation, not only for myself, but for all those who longed for a brighter future. As I knelt in prayer, a wave of doubt washed over me, and for the first time, I truly questioned everything I had always known. Each verse I recited seemed to echo back at me from the walls, reflecting my growing unease. The weight of expectation pressed heavily on my shoulders, and amidst the ritualistic prayers, I felt a deep void gnawing at my spirit. I had learned to fervently obey the traditions of my upbringing, but instead of filling the emptiness, they amplified my sense of isolation. The more I sought spiritual connection, the more I realized how constrained my life had become. My dreams began to transform into vivid narratives filled with symbols of freedom and self-discovery. In these nighttime visions, I saw myself breaking free from invisible chains, running through fields of light where no judgment existed. I encountered people who shared stories of love, acceptance, and awakening, none of which aligned with the restrictive doctrines I was taught. Each dream felt like a whisper from my soul, urging me to question the controlling systems that dictated how I lived my life and treated those around me. The injustices that I once accepted as normal began to manifest as haunting shadows in my subconscious, compelling me to confront them. One night, my dreams took a profound turn. I was enveloped in a light so brilliant, I felt like I was floating. In that sacred space, I met Jesus. His presence was overwhelming yet serene, a calming force that dispelled the fears I had carried for so long. As he looked into my eyes, I felt the barriers between us dissolve. He spoke not in words, but through a deep understanding of my heart. I realized then that the spiritual war one felt within was part of a larger struggle, one that stretched across the globe, a battle against the deception that kept people chained to ignorance and despair. Jesus revealed to me the hidden agenda behind the elite's manipulation of faith. I saw the web of lies spun over generations, designed to control and divide. I witnessed how faith had been co-opted as a tool for oppression, used to keep individuals from discovering their true selves and the extraordinary potential within. The urgency of the message was undeniable. I could see how many were left in the darkness, their spirits dulled from lifetimes of suffocating expectations. While I felt an awakening within myself, I also felt a deep sense of responsibility to help others emerge from their own darkness. When I returned to consciousness, I was filled with raw determination. I understood that embracing this new awareness meant confronting the very foundations of my past. My heart raced as I navigated the complexities of my surroundings, bracing for the challenges ahead. I knew I had to speak out, to share the truths that had been revealed to me. But the fear of rejection and backlash loomed like a dark cloud. The transformation within me was significant, and now the true test would be to put my faith into action. The battle was just beginning, and as I prepared to step into my new reality, I felt the weight of the world upon my shoulders, ready to fight not only for my freedom, but for all those still shackled by the chains of deception. The night of the accident changed everything for me. I remember the warmth of the day slowly fading as I stepped out onto the street. I was riding my bicycle, feeling the freedom the breeze offered, but it all turned to chaos in an instant. I was struck by a vehicle, and just like that, darkness enveloped me. I felt my body slip away, and as I descended into unconsciousness, I had no idea that this moment would lead to something profound, something that would forever alter my understanding of life and faith. In that state of oblivion, I found myself in a vast desert, disoriented and confused. The air was thick, weighted with silence, and shadows loomed around me. Then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. It was Jesus. His presence illuminated the surroundings, casting away the fear that had gripped my heart. He called me by name, and in that moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift. I felt a love so profound that it shattered every barrier I had built throughout my life. I was no longer just a girl facing a forced marriage. I was a soul yearning for liberation. As I stood before him, revelation flooded my mind. Jesus showed me the spiritual war that raged not just in my heart, but across the globe. I witnessed how the elite manipulated truth, weaving a hidden agenda designed to keep people shackled in deception. Their control was pervasive, infiltrating everything from politics to religion, fueling division and suffering. It became painfully clear that my life, my struggles, were not isolated experiences, but part of a larger battle against forces determined to extinguish hope. The revelation was both terrifying and freeing. I realized that I had the power to choose, to fight against the oppression that sought to dictate my existence. I saw visions of communities torn apart by mistrust and fear, families pushed to the brink by the weight of cultural expectations. The imagery was vivid, each frame a testament to the struggles of countless souls shackled by lies. But amid the despair, I also saw sparks of hope, individuals awakening to their own truths, breaking free from the constraints of their reality. Jesus urged me to embrace this awakening, to recognize my role in this battle. I felt a fire ignite within me, a determination to rise above the deception, and to live a life defined by love and truth. As the encounter continued, I sensed that my journey was only just beginning. The desert around me transformed, reflecting the tumult of my inner conflict. It was clear that embracing the truth meant confronting the powerful forces that sought to silence me. As I returned to consciousness, I was filled with a resolve that felt unshakable. The experiences of that night echoed in my heart, urging me to share the revelations I had received, to become a voice for those still lost in the spiritual war. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the light I had encountered was now my guide, and I was determined to follow it into the unknown. When I finally opened my eyes, the sterile antiseptic scent of the hospital room hit me like a cold wave. The noise of machines felt overwhelming. I had returned from a place I could barely comprehend, a realm where I had stood before Jesus, felt his presence, and received revelations that shattered everything I thought I knew. But as the reality of my surroundings settled in, an equally chilling thought crept into my mind. What awaited me outside these walls? As I came to terms with my new reality, fear gripped me tightly. The world I once knew, the traditions I had adhered to, and the family I loved suddenly felt alien. I remembered their faces brimming with pride when I was being shaped into the perfect daughter, the model of obedience. Now, after my transformative experience, I was a stranger in my own skin. Would they still look at me the same way? Or would I be cast out, labeled a heretic for daring to step off the prescribed path? I sensed the invisible walls closing in around me, a prison built from their expectations and the deep-rooted beliefs that governed our lives. The fears escalated as I faced the inevitable confrontation with my family. When I returned home, palpable hostility hung in the air. I could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on me, and the whispers exchanged among them cut deeper than any blade. They failed to see the light that had been ignited within me by my encounter with Jesus. Instead, they focused on the rebellion they perceived, viewing my transformation as a threat to our way of life. I tried to share my experience with them, how I had touched the divine, yet their faces twisted in disbelief. The revelation that had filled my heart with hope only generated fear and anger in theirs. In those intense moments of conflict, a spiritual war raged inside me. I was torn between the love I felt for my family and the unyielding tug of my new faith. I couldn't deny the truth that had illuminated my path or the love Jesus had shown me. I understood the hidden agenda of the elite, the manipulation and control that had kept us in the dark, trapped within a cycle of obedience and fear. How could I turn my back on this newfound awareness? Yet here I was, facing the reality of rejection from those I had always sought to please. The tension could have easily consumed me, and at times, it felt as if it might. Days passed, and the emotional strain mounted. I watched my family cling to their traditions, oblivious to the deception surrounding us. Their resolve to uphold their beliefs felt admirable, but I sensed they were suffocating. I vividly recalled the feeling of solidity in my dreams, the assurance that there was a greater truth waiting to be discovered. Was my awakening meant to tear my family apart, or was it the catalyst for eventual healing? My heart ached with the desire to share that love and understanding with them, to let them see the expansive freedom that awaited us all outside the confines of tradition. But the anxiety of what lay ahead weighed heavily. I couldn't ignore the whispers of doubt that threatened to drown out my awakening. What if I lost them forever? Yet there was a growing sense of urgency within me, a calling to stand up for this truth, to confront the spiritual war, not just for myself, but for countless others who still lived in the shadows of deception. I made a choice. I would continue to face the storm, ready to fight for the love that could dismantle the walls built from fear. The path ahead might be fraught with challenges, but the light promised in the revelation of Jesus was a guiding beacon too powerful to ignore. In my solitude, I embarked on a secret journey for truth, and it was a quest that transformed my understanding of both faith and community. Each evening, after prayers that felt increasingly hollow, I would retreat to my small room, where I could escape the judgmental eyes of my family. In those quiet moments, I found solace in the biblical texts I secretly acquired. The pages whispered to me, each verse inviting me deeper into a world of possibility and love that my previous life had denied. Jesus, words resonated in my heart, filling the void laughter and happiness could not touch. Alongside my studies, I began to search for Christian testimonies online. I stumbled upon countless videos of people who had bravely shared their journeys from darkness to light. Their stories mirrored my struggles and fears, revealing the commonality in our quests for freedom. As I absorbed their experiences, I felt a connection to something greater, a community bound together by the shared knowledge of spiritual warfare and the fight against deception. I no longer felt alone, I felt empowered. Each testimony reminded me that awakening didn't have to be a solitary endeavor. It could be a shared journey. Through the grace of God, I discovered a small group, rooted in faith and love, people who understood the turbulence of my heart and the urgency of my awakening. Meeting them was like stepping into a light-filled room after being in the dark for so long. They welcomed me with open arms, not caring about my past or the decisions I was still grappling with. This group became a sanctuary, a place where I could explore my new beliefs without fear of judgment. They shared teachings that challenged the hidden agenda of the elite, discussing how many faith traditions had been used as tools of control. Their insights ignited a fire within me to stand against the lies that had held me captive for so long. As I opened up about my own experiences, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The stories flowed out of me, recounting my near-death experience with Jesus became an act of liberation. With each word I spoke, I unveiled the truths that had been revealed during that life-changing encounter. The love I had felt wasn't merely a fleeting moment. It was a calling to embrace my identity and purpose. I realized that sharing my story was not just cathartic. It was a way to help others find their own path to freedom. The more I shared, the more I saw the impact it had on those listening. Faces lit up with understanding, eyes glistening with the hope of awakening to their truths. The connection I formed within this community deepened my resolve. I began to see how the spiritual war was not just a personal battle, but a collective struggle against forces seeking to keep us divided and submissive. We exchanged strategies on how to support one another in our transitions, addressing the fears we faced from family and society. I became more convinced than ever that we were all part of a greater narrative. It was a powerful reminder that fighting for truth and love often means standing against deeply entrenched beliefs, risking everything for the sake of awakening. I felt alive, charged with purpose, ready to confront the challenges ahead and to share the light I had found. The journey was far from over. It was only just beginning, and I was determined to walk it with courage. The moment I encountered Jesus during my near-death experience was etched into my memory like a vivid painting basking in light. As I stood in his presence, I realized that my journey was about more than just my own liberation. It was part of a larger narrative, a calling that transcended my individual struggles. In that sacred space, I felt a deep understanding wash over me. I understood that many young women remained trapped in oppressive systems, shackled by cultures and traditions that dictated their worth. No longer could I sit in silence, watching others suffer when I had tasted the sweetness of truth. Coming back to life ignited a fire within me, a sense of purpose that would not be extinguished. I knew I had a mission: to warn others like myself, to share the revelations I had received about the hidden agendas that manipulated our faith and controlled our lives. I had seen the deception that guided our beliefs, the way the elite twisted religion to maintain power over us. The urgency surged within my heart. Too many lived in fear, not knowing that an awakening awaited them just beyond the walls of tradition. Every day, I felt that quiet calling grow louder, pushing me to reach out to women who were still ensnared in the darkness of restrictive beliefs. I envisioned gatherings where we could talk freely about our struggles and dreams, where we could recognize the patterns of oppression woven through the fabric of our lives. I yearned to share the love and acceptance I had found in Jesus, to help others recognize their own divine potential. The revelation that had changed me needed to be shared. It felt like a sacred trust handed down from the heavens. But as I prepared to embark on this mission, I couldn't ignore the risks involved. The weight of their disapproval loomed large. The thought of being ostracized by my family and community threatened to overshadow my resolve. I remembered the faces of those I'd grown up with, the looks of disbelief, the whispers of scorn. Yet the love I felt from Jesus was a force strong enough to drive away those fears. I understood that my path was fraught with challenges, but standing on the edge of the spiritual war prompted me to fight harder for the truth I held so dearly. As I took tentative steps toward my new purpose, the shadows of doubt still flickered at the edges of my mind. Would I make a difference? Could my small voice awaken others to the love and liberation I had discovered? Each encounter felt monumental, and with every story shared, a part of me shed the layers of fear I had clung to for so long. I started to see glimmers of hope in the eyes of these women, a reflection of my own awakening. I was no longer just a victim of circumstance. I was a warrior equipped with the truth, ready to shine a light on the hidden agendas that sought to suppress us all. The journey had just begun, and the horizon was filled with promise, ready to usher in a wave of awakening. The day I chose to leave my family home was both terrifying and exhilarating. Symbolically, I shed my old identity as I adopted a new name, a name that signified my physical and spiritual rebirth. It felt like crossing a threshold into a world where my existence wasn't dictated by the oppressive traditions I had known. As I stepped into the unknown, the echoes of my past tugged at my heart, but the vision of freedom propelled me forward. I could feel the weight of the spiritual war. One had been fighting, lifting, replaced by a sense of purpose that ignited a fire within me. In the weeks that followed my departure, I found myself drawn to helping others who faced similar struggles. I began connecting with women in difficult situations, sharing my story and the truth I had discovered through my encounter with Jesus. Each meeting felt like an act of defiance against the systems designed to keep us submissive. I realized that my journey to liberation was not just for me. It was a calling to reach those still trapped in the shadows. I listened to their stories, and it was clear that many felt the same emptiness I once had, lost in a world filled with expectations that suffocated their very essence. My experiences became a beacon of hope for many, as I shared the revelations that had been given to me. We spoke of the hidden agendas that manipulated our beliefs, and the elite forces that sought to divide us. I couldn't help but feel the urgency in their eyes, the same urgency that had sparked my awakening. I was no longer just a woman escaping her past. I had become a voice for truth, encouraging others to seek their own paths to restoration and freedom. The transformation we nurtured together was a powerful reminder of the resilience within each of us, waiting to break forth amidst the constraints of traditional beliefs. With each person I helped, the layers of my own healing unfolded. I learned to navigate my identity as I vacillated between the world I left behind and the one I hoped to build. The rejection from my family still stung deeply. They couldn't understand the freedom I felt and the love that enveloped me. But for the first time, I stood firm in my conviction that the truth I had chosen was worth pursuing, even if it meant facing the consequences alone. I could feel Jesus guiding me through the tumult, urging me to keep sharing, to keep fighting the good fight against the influences of deception that continued to permeate our lives. As time passed, I found refuge in a women's center dedicated to restoring faith and dignity to those looking for liberation. Here, surrounded by a community of strong women, I felt empowered to continue my mission. My testimony continued to impact many lives. Each shared experience of overcoming adversity strengthened the bonds we forged. Though the wounds of rejection lingered, I held on to hope, the belief that my family would one day understand and perhaps reconcile became an anchor amid the storms of uncertainty. I embraced my role as a warrior for love and truth in the ongoing spiritual war, knowing that with every act of kindness, we could disrupt the hidden agendas that sought to suppress our spirits. Now that you've heard my story, I want to leave you with something to ponder, something deeply personal. Have you ever felt that tug at your soul, urging you to question the very fabric of your existence? Do you ever wonder if the world around you is veiled in shadows, orchestrated by unseen forces that seek to keep us divided and afraid? Because, my friends, I believe it is. I have traversed the darkness, emerged from the shadows that sought to define my worth, and embraced the liberating light that is Jesus. My encounter was not just a personal awakening, it was an invitation for all of us to awaken together in a time where the spiritual battle is at its peak. We are witnessing a monumental clash between illusion and truth, a war for our hearts and minds, and I am here to tell you that you are not powerless in this fight. I want to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself standing at a crossroads, caught between what you've been taught and the whispers of your spirit urging you to seek more? Your experiences matter. Share them with me in the comments below. You are not alone on this journey. We are all in this together, navigating the intricate web of our faith, searching for the light amidst the darkness. If my testimony resonated with you, I urge you not to leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and hitting that notification bell. By doing so, you'll be part of a community that uncovers the profound truths that can change lives. There's so much more to reveal, and together, we'll explore the depths of the spiritual awakening that awaits us all. In our next episode, prepare to hear another compelling story, this time from someone who bravely faced their darkest fears only to emerge transformed by the light of grace. My name is Hamza, and I am grateful you chose to walk this path with me today. Remember, every step toward the light is a step toward freedom. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep shining.